Hi, this is your host, and today we're going to look at a superorganism known as Sinch Tenkin. Like all our stories, this one starts with a bang, literally. Just outside the sleepy town of Ithaca, New York, a Cornell University lab is shaken by a building-rattling boom. A researcher has just returned from the field with a new haul of leafcutter ant specimens, and he's dropped them into the freezer. So far, so mundane. But these are no ordinary ants. In fact, they are the stars of today's story. As the frozen package thuds onto the lab bench, a single superorganism is born. Here, 600 million years of natural selection come to life. Over millions of iterations and trillions of individuals, the blueprint for complex behavior is encoded in a genome as old as time. As the ice thaws, a drama unfolds. With the queen at its center, this tiny state within a state exerts a power over its environment that belies its size. This is the blueprint of an empire. This is part one, the blueprint of a colony. Beneath this quiet surface lies a thriving empire. No king, only one queen, and thousands sworn to her cause. The story of this colony starts with a single chamber, carved by tireless workers wielding jaws like chisels. Grain by grain, the earth is moved, creating an intricate labyrinth. Above, workers ferry soil to the surface, creating a protective mound around the entrance. A miniature fortress against flood and foe. Inside, a world takes shape. The upper levels become pantries for food. In the middle chambers, nurseries, humid and warm, take shape, each stocked with hundreds of larvae and pupae. And in the deepest vault, the queen's private chamber, the beating heart of the colony, here cocooned off from the busy tunnels below. The queen incubates the next generation, gently depositing eggs into waiting, sticky blobs of silk spun by her attendants. As she lays, nurse ants whisk the eggs away to safety, then return for more. Attendants tend to her every need, keeping her cool when she broods, feeding her regurgitated liquids when she hungers. Now, thanks to recent advances in technology, we can observe these events through the eyes of the ants themselves. From the perspective of a worker, the world is one of polarized light and sweeping motion. Here, trails of pheromones, invisible to us, lead to rich sources of food. Their shadows loom large and dangerous. When the first rays of sunlight penetrate the nest in the morning, they signal a shift in duties. Now engineers set to work repairing cracks in the tunnels, fortifying the walls. Soldiers take up arms, surveying the landscape from the crest of nearby pebbles. And foragers prepare for their daily ventures above ground. Some species venture as far as 200 meters from the nest, undertaking a pilgrimage to a favored flower or leaf vein. There, the delicate business of harvesting begins. They snip the plants with their scissor-like mandibles, lugging their bounty home for processing. Back in the nest, workers dismantle the harvest into smaller fragments. Workers chew portions into a digestible paste for larvae, while others stack and secure long-term reserves deep underground. Here, grains of seeds, fragments of leaves, even chunks of bone are stored in piles and chambers. Even food becomes community property. Some species create living pantries, workers transformed into living storage tanks, their bellies swelling with sweet reserves to feed the colony in times of famine. But to keep this incredible feat of cooperative behavior from falling apart, every member of the colony must adhere to a strict set of rules encoded into their DNA. These rules allow thousands of individuals to act in concert, forming a single mighty organism. And thanks to a little help from science, we can now see what this looks like from the perspective of an individual ant. For example, here thousands of ants scurry around a piece of fruit, each tending to its own task. When one gets in another's way, the pair stop, exchange information via chemical signals, and resume their tasks. An observer might call this senseless chaos, but it is anything but. From the perspective of an individual, this is an organized world where each action has a consequence and each life has a purpose. And when the day is done and the sun dips low in the sky, a new set of challenges arises. Now for our second act, let's follow one of the foragers back to the nest. Alone and laden with loot, the forager faces a daunting choice. It's the most obvious route to the nest, leads directly through the open, where predators lurk. The safer route would be to circumnavigate the perimeter, traveling many extra miles. To decide which path to take, the forager consults the colony's collective memory bank. The pheromone trails left behind by other foragers earlier in the day. Pheromones are invisible to us, but thanks to recent advances in science, we can actually see the chemical landscape of the world, as if we were tiny ants ourselves. Traveling along a pheromone highway, the forager soon encounters others doing the same. As they pass, the ants exchange information about the quality of the food they carry and the distance to the nest. Then they continue on their separate ways. After all, the forager's job is done once it reaches the nest entrance. Now, inside the colony, a whole new set of challenges awaits. Imagine for a moment being an ant carrying a crumb twice as big as your head. You've navigated tricky terrain, outrun hungry beetles, and shimmied past territorial rivals. You heave the prize over the last rise and deposit it into a waiting pile. But the victory is short-lived. Soon enough, you must turn back and start the trek all over again. And here's where the real test of the ant's spirit begins. Like the best of the World Cup, the work of ants is done in concert, without hierarchy, without central planning, yet somehow always in unison. As the sun sets over Ithaca, New York, the ants are coming home. Or do they save some of the harvest for later, ensuring a meal in the lean months ahead? The answer, as with all things ant colonies, is both. First, the foragers unload their precious cargo, then set off once more to gather more. Meanwhile, those staying behind begin sorting the harvest. Some will be eaten tonight, some put aside for future meals, and some distributed to the larvae to nourish the next generation. For our fourth act, let's check back in with our returning forager. After delivering the harvest, it sets out once more to gather more food for the colony. Navigating the familiar landscape, the forager approaches a half-chewed leaf and lays down its own pheromone, claiming the food within. Soon enough, other foragers arrive, attracted by the scent of food and the trail of its discovery. Together, the foragers dismantle the harvest, carrying pieces back to the nest. One by one, they disappear into the undergrowth, reappearing moments later at the nest entrance. Now, thanks to a recent advance in microscopy, we can finally see what the world looks like through the eyes of an ant. This image shows a leaf intercepted by 4 ants. We can see the texture of the leaf as well as the ants gripping it from different angles. We can even make out the fine hairs on the ants' bodies. Finally, we can see the ants' exoskeletons in 3 dimensions, as well as the ground beneath them. This is unprecedented access to a world usually invisible to us. Now, to gather enough food for the whole colony, each individual must perform 2 miracles. First, it must reach the food source safely. Second, it must bring the harvest home. And here, the ants employ a tactic that has allowed them to dominate the earth. Imagine being an ant tasked with guarding the colony while your sisters go out foraging. Your duty is to protect the nest from intruders, whether they be beetle, scorpion, or raiding party of ants. And suddenly, an intruder appears. Acting quickly, you dispatch your fellow soldiers, and together, you launch a counterattack. Now, the battle rages, but the ants know their attackers are tiring and push forward. Overwhelming the raiders and driving them back to the surface, the attack is repelled, but the cost is high. Many will not return. Yet as the surviving ants survey the damage, a quiet understanding passes between them. Each understands that its sisters died for the good of the whole, and that its own life is forfeit should the need arise. For ants, the cost of community is high, but the benefits are higher still. Thanks to recent advances in computer modeling, we can get a glimpse of what this world might look like from above. As the camera pans across the landscape, we see one of the most astounding sights in nature, an intricate living tapestry woven across the earth. Trails radiate outward from the nest like neural pathways, a living network of order and purpose. This is the blueprint of an empire built on cooperation and fueled by the endless hunger of thousands of tiny mouths. No wonder no other species comes close to matching their success. With over 12,000 described species, ants have conquered every continent on Earth except Antarctica. Some species have been here since the dinosaurs, others evolved just yesterday. Together, they number in the hundreds of trillions. So when we look at an ant colony, we are seeing something truly remarkable. We are seeing the blueprint for an empire. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Sea Show. If you liked it, please share because there's more to come. We hope to see you next time.